Hey everybody, it's Scott Steen with winnersandwhiners.com. Happy Cinco de Mayo, everybody. Man, it's the day we've all been waiting for. It's Cinco de Mayo on a Taco Tuesday. And what are we doing? We're all staying home. That's right. It's cruel, cruel irony. But you know what? To help you get through it, we're going to talk a little sports, baby. We're going to talk a little NFL. This is going to be a fun day. So we're going to take a look at the running backs in the AFC, various props and bets that you can make on those running backs. To help me out, as always, he is my partner. He is up there in Long Island, New York. Please welcome aboard. It is Scott Reichel. Scott, happy Cinco de Mayo, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I spent the early part of Cinco de Mayo doing what a lot of other people were doing for the holidays, which was watching Korean baseball at roughly 2 in the morning. Nothing's better than last-second ESPN sports programming that gets delayed about 40 minutes due to a rain delay. That's a true sign of how things have been going in the sports world. That is a pretty solid indication. But then, sat through it. I watched pretty much the entire game. And I was pleasantly surprised by the actual production value, and I didn't think the Zoom commentators were that bad. So overall, couldn't really complain. I know you said you watched a little bit of it. I really thought it was pretty decent, and there was no better way for me to start off a Cinco de Mayo than watching a Korean baseball game. So that was my thoughts.
Fair enough. That's a little cross culture mashup there in the 21st century. Why not? Why not? Indeed. And did you have a bet on the game?
I actually did not. I was probably the only person watching it with no money invested in the game.
I did not make a bet either, man. I have to admit. So
I thought about it. Twitter I thought was hilarious during the entire thing. If you ever get a brand new debut for a sporting event, Twitter's going to go nuts over it. It's going to be really funny. But I just had a great time of watching, I'd say, my entire feed just go nuts, involving people just updating, oh, we lost the first 5 innings, get him next time, stuff like that. And I'm just like, you had no idea what the hell you were talking about going into this game. Like, it just is what it is. I mean, that's the thing about new leagues and new sports for casual bettors, is the fact that you have the opportunity to either look like a complete square or look like a complete shark in the span of about 3 hours. And I don't like to brag, but there was a time last year where I was undefeated in XFL bets, and that was because I was 1-0, and I won in the only afternoon game that they had. And it felt pretty good. And that's what a lot of people were going through yesterday with the KBO. And I'd expect a lot of people to start selling more picks, claiming they're undefeated, when in reality they are 1-0 because they took a -200 money line favorite. So keep that in mind.
And that was the team that scored 4. It was 4 in the first, because I joined it like in the 4th or 5th inning. It was already 4-0.
No, it was actually 0-0 going into the 4th, I believe. And
Okay.
then you had a couple of home runs here and there. You had back-to-back home runs actually from I believe it was the Dinos, I believe, had ended up winning.
Dinos were definitely one of the teams.
Yeah, they were like -180, and they were on ESPN. So people are probably just going to claim that they are sharps in this sport, and in reality, they took the massive money line favorite on television. So, if you're looking for picks on Korean baseball online, just try to make sure that the people giving the picks out actually have some credibility. Just because they won the game the first time around doesn't mean they actually know what they're talking about. So just keep that in mind moving forward.
What was the name of the 2 guys that hit the back-to-back homers, Scott?
That's a tough one. I don't know. I
Right.
know that one of their names had a hyphen in it, shockingly, and I cannot say that I'm going to try to either pronounce it or remember what the name even was. So I don't know. But the guy bat flipped the second one, and it was actually pretty nice.
I think if we ever do a KBO show, I think we're going to be talking about a lot of numbers. Number 35 looks good this year.
Possibly. I think I would probably just look at stats, and we could just refer to positions. Like the first baseman looks pretty good. He's probably poised for a pretty good year. I mean, there's ways around it, but I don't know. Plus, you also have the discussion on either putting the last name first or putting the first name first, depending on if you want the Korean pronunciation or if you want the American pronunciation, because you can kind of shift around the names. Kind of like in basketball, what you saw in China with Yao Ming and how it was spelled out Ming Yao. unlike all the video games and all of the whatever. So there's also
Okay.
some discussions about which order you want to put the names in. There's a lot of stuff to go through.
Well, I like that flexibility. That's a good language, good culture. You have a little flexibility because
Well,
you're not right.
that's all of Asia when it comes to that, because Yao was based in China, this was based in Korea, but they all have the same idea of pretty much putting the last name first. So you can really go either way, honestly.
I don't know whoever says we don't teach around here. We bring you all kinds of information. We teach you things. You learn cultural differences, and
Hmm.
it's a real kumbaya kind of situation. So, yeah, we talked about that. We did talk about that off air, and it was something that you and I both watched last night. I'll probably make a bet tonight. I got to be honest with you. I'll probably put a little sprinkle down on the KBO. I was telling you just before we came to air. I got my finally my stimulus money yesterday.
Nice.
So I'm going to be going nuts, or I'm going to be living in my apartment another month. So
So, in other words, we're going to be recapping the running back prop show with your double bomb 5-time lock of the year in KBO.
Yes,
Is that what's going on?
yeah, and my never missed bet of the century will be upcoming. So
Okay. So stay
let's take a
tuned
look,
for that.
Scott. Yesterday we did the NFC running backs, and I got to be honest, that was a bit of a snooze fest. It seems like what we learned yesterday was a lot of the really good running backs
Or in the AFC.
are in the AFC.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree with that?
Yes. I mean, of course, you have McCaffrey, who's probably the best running back in the entire league, in my opinion. But
Sure.
for the most part, if you were looking just solely at the league leaders in rushing yards, mostly people in the AFC. I mean,
Yeah.
you had the top two were in the AFC. You had just going through it, you had 7 of the top 9 in the AFC. So that's just a testament to how that goes. I mean, one of them's Lamar Jackson, so it's really a little bit less because you're adding a quarterback in there. But yeah, the AFC tends to have the deeper running back class.
Well, you know what? Speaking of that deep class, why don't you kick us off? Give us one of your favorites there, Scott. Start off strong, buddy.
Okay, so for me, I'm going to start out with whoever led the league in rushing last year. It's going to be Derrick Henry, and it's going to
Okay.
be I like the over 13.99.5. That's on Fox Bet. Pulling up DraftKings. I don't know what line do you have there at PointsBet?
I did combine, Scott. I got 15.50.5 combined.
Okay, so
And what do you got? 13 what?
I got 13.99.5, but I'm trying to compare it to DraftKings here. So
Okay.
DraftKings does not have it. So all right, great comparison there.
You got 13.99 rushing, right?
Yes, just solely based on rushing, and
Okay.
the juice on both sides on Fox Bet. The over is actually plus 100. I like the over. And I know that Derrick Henry pretty much got run into the ground last year based on how many carries he's had. I really think that the Titans not giving him a contract extension and just forcing him to play one more year is pretty much a sign that they are just going to run him completely into the ground so they don't have to pay him a massive contract the following year. It would not surprise me to see them potentially just absolutely just give him all the touches that he wants. Last year, he only played in 15 games, and he broke 1,500 yards. I just think that 13.99 is too low, especially considering the fact that the rest of the division isn't very good. So Tannehill looked very good in the second half of the year, but the Titans made it to the AFC title game solely because Derrick Henry was absolutely ridiculous on a regular basis. The offensive line is still really good. They did lose Jack Conklin, which could be an issue. But overall, this line might seem a little high. I really think that Henry's just a bowling ball who can't be stopped in the winter months. So I would not be surprised to see him go off again. I think he should break 1,400. I'm going to take the over.
All right, very good. And this is going to be one of those weird ones because for a lot of the same reasons you've laid out, I'm going to take the under. I think that he had over 300 carries last year, and I think they have worn this guy out. I don't think your body can take that kind of punishment. I agree with you. By not signing him to a long-term deal, it does look like they're going to try and literally run him into the ground this season, and I think that's going to take its toll. I wouldn't be surprised to see him miss 2 to 3 games, and I don't think that's going to get him over that total. Here's another thing that really surprised me is that he's not very good at catching passes out of the backfield. They don't utilize him very much. in the short passing game. He had 18 receptions for 206 yards. So he had a nice yards per catch average, over 10 yards per catch, but they just didn't utilize him much. So I took a look at the total there of 1550 combined, and I think he goes under that total, Scott, simply for the reason that I don't think the body can take that kind of punishment. It does worry me greatly that maybe not their best offensive lineman, but certainly one of their top two, Jack Conklin, is no longer with the squad. I just think to get lightning last season, to have those incredible seasons, you just don't see them back to back that often. And for the very same reason that you laid out, I'm going to play the under in this one. So
yeah, well, there's a reason why I agree with the receiving yards. Even though the yards per reception was good, that there's some outliers in there. I mean, week 1 against the Browns, I believe he caught an 80-yard screen pass for a touchdown. So he's really not a threat at all out of the backfield to catch the ball, with the occasional shocking screen pass that might go for like 70 yards or so. But yeah, he's really not a threat to catch the ball ever. So I think if you were going to play an under, you probably should take the receiving yards under as well, just as a combo deal if you want the under, because you're kind of just getting free yards to fade there, because he's really not a threat to catch the ball ever out of the backfield. So if you like the over, I would take the over in rushing yards. If you like the under, I agree with you. I would take the rushing and receiving combo, because I just don't see receiving just really being much of a pro for Derrick Henry's game. So I agree with you on that.
All right, fair enough. I'm going to start off with a guy that I really like, and I don't know how you're going to feel about this. This is one of my kind of my picks to click, kind of an up and comer. I'm going to take a look at Devin Singletary up there with the Buffalo Bills. We've got him at over 1,001 yards rushing, and I think he is a star that is going to be really coming into his own this season. They got rid of the ageless wonder up there in Frank Gore. He finally retired. It looks like T.J. Yeldon could actually be on his way out. He was only suited up for 6 games last season. They did draft Zach Moss in the 3rd round out of Utah, but I think that Devin Singletary is going to be the man in this Buffalo Bills offense. He averaged 5.1 yards per carry. Now he's a little guy, and it's a matter of keeping him healthy. And I think that he's learning the difference between being hurt and being injured. And I think this is going to be a good season for the Buffalo Bills. I think it's going to be a good season for Devin Singletary. Scott, your thoughts?
You said the number was 1,001?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I like the over on that as well. I'm not sure what the juice is. Fun fact, though, Frank Gore officially signed a 1-year contract with the Jets today. So he is not officially retired yet. He is still in the league. I'm not really sure what to think of the contract, but either or, he is staying in the league, and his son is officially going into college and is going to be on the college football team. So he's definitely been around a long time. But I agree, even with Zach Moss, who's had injury issues in college at Utah, Singletary is clearly the number 1 guy, really not close. I do think the addition of Diggs should help out with the rushing game, just because I think it will help stretch the defense out and try to give Singletary more holes to work with. I mean, Singletary only played in 12 games last year, wasn't even starting a decent amount of those, and he still had 775 yards. So based on that, I think he probably should break 1,100, especially with the Bills, who, with Josh Allen, seem to be a more physical type of football team who like to dominate in the trenches and then try to use their passing game kind of more secondarily. So for that reason, I agree. The division's also not going to be that good. I think Singletary should have a solid season. The only issue you might have is that Singletary is also a very good pass catcher. So there is a potential chance that he might go under in rushing yards, but he might have a very solid season catching the ball out of the backfield. But overall, kind of like Miles Sanders that we talked about yesterday, I just think that last season he was very good despite not being the full-time starter every game. And now that he's going to be given full control over the snaps for the most part, I think that should lead to a very solid season. And for that reason, I think he should break 4 digits this upcoming season. So I like the over as well.
All right, very good. What do you got? What else you got for us?
So looking through some of the other players here, I'm actually going to be looking at We're gonna look at Nick Chubb for a second, and he actually has 12.99.5 for the Browns. I find this number a little bit tough, just because of the fact that he had 14.94 last year. For me, though, I'm going to take the over at 12.99.5. Now, if you actually wanted a middle, you can find it. It's available at 13.50.5 on DraftKings, but it's 12.99.5 on Fox Bet. So you actually
Don't
could
hate
get
that.
So you could get a middle there, which is not bad considering the fact that, I mean, anytime you get over the like 12.99 threshold there, I mean, I feel like that's a decent like area for you to get 50 yards, because that's usually where an elite running back season will end, probably somewhere in that range. For me, though, I'm going to take the over, and we talked about this yesterday. I know this number's high, but we both agreed that with Stefanski as the new head coach, I think Chubb should touch the ball somewhere around 25 times a game, 23 times a game, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
And with the improved offensive line, they actually just got Jack Conklin, who we mentioned left Tennessee during the Derrick Henry prop that we were discussing right before. I think Chubb's a phenomenal running back. And the issue you might have is, what about Kareem Hunt? Maybe Hunt will eat into his touches. But at the end of the day, I just think Chubb is a phenomenal running back. And I think that with the improved offensive line, I think Cleveland's going to be better than people anticipate this season. I think they will be very competitive. And with Stefanski as the new head coach, I think that bodes really well for Chubb to have another very, very solid year. And after going for the second most rushing yards in the league at 1494 last year, I think he should break 1,300 again. So for that reason, I'm going to take the over.
Yeah, and I know the devil's advocate would say, Kareem Hunt missed the first 8 games last season due to suspension, and caused Nick Chubb to put up a lot of those yards early. But even later in the season, when they were both healthy, Nick Chubb was absolutely the guy. Kareem Hunt was used more out of the backfield as a pass-catching weapon, as that is mainly what his forte is. Watching Kareem Hunt in Kansas City, we talked about that a little bit. He was a slightly above average back, and Nick Chubb is an elite NFL running back. I think that somebody like Kevin Stefanski, who certainly does a good job at recognizing running back talent and utilizing it, knows which side his bread is going to be buttered on there. I think Nick Chubb gets those yards as well. I would probably not be as full-throated in my optimism as you, but I would give that a lean towards the over, and it would certainly consider playing a middle spot there with a pretty good number. You said it was between 12.99 and 13.50, correct?
Yes. Yes, yeah. And the juice, I believe, let me just confirm that. So the juice on both sides is actually the juice for the over. Sorry, I just lost my place for a second. Yeah, the juice on one side is -110. The juice on the other is -125. So you're also not paying a heavy juice on either side. So it's not that bad.
I don't mind that at all. That's that should be an interesting team to watch, as they're going to have to make a fair amount of decisions after this season about which direction, whether they're going to blow it all up or whether they're not. Scott, what do you think for just as a quick aside, I know in case anybody missed the show, what do you think for Cleveland this season? How are they going to do?
I know we were both on the over for the team total. On paper, you have to like this team a lot on paper. But the only problem is that it's Cleveland. And, usually when things are supposed to go right, it never does. So that's also a huge question there. When you say blow it up, I'm not really sure how exactly they would plan on blowing it up, besides completely shipping off the receiving core, who consists of a couple of divas, Odell, who he dealt with a lot of injuries last year, but I think we can all agree he underachieved dramatically last year. Jarvis Landry I actually thought was decent last year, but he's also been known to be a bit of a diva in the past. I mean, you had Myles Garrett who got suspended, but I pretty much think the Browns have to try to keep him. I think he's actually that good. I know that he is a potential distraction, but he is so good on that defensive line. He is amazing. So I think they have to keep him.
He really is. I was from the blow it up standpoint, I know that these guys are coming down the home stretch on their rookie deals. It's going to be Mayfield's 4th year, right?
Yeah, for the most part. If you wanted to know my opinion about where I think they'll go in the future, I would expect them to decline Mayfield's option. And I think that no matter what, if this team does not make the playoffs, they're trading Odell. I know that there's been rumors about it for the last couple of years. I really don't think you have a choice. you can't keep spending that much cap room on wide receivers if the bulk of the rest of your team isn't good enough to get over the hump in a very tough division. I think you pretty much have to. The thing that people have noticed recently in the NFL is that elite running backs and elite wide receivers are more luxuries than necessities. And I think that people realize now, especially in front offices, that most of the teams that do well invest heavily in the defense and the offensive line. And I think, and most likely a quarterback as well, even though most of the quarterbacks in today's NFL are overpaid dramatically. So for that reason, I think wide receivers are a secondary concern. And I don't really think that you should be paying a wide receiver $15+ million if you haven't made the playoffs with him. I think that's a waste of money. So I think they're probably going to trade him.
I'm with you on that one.
I do like Cleveland, though. I do like Cleveland this year. I think Cleveland should win probably around 9 games realistically. I think they should. Would I be surprised if it blows up in their face? No, but I kind of hope that they actually play well because on paper they should be a very entertaining team.
And are you ready to give Myles Garrett 24 million a year?
I hope Cleveland doesn't, so the Cowboys or Jets can. I'll tell you that much. I mean, the Cowboys can't afford him, but I'd love to see him go back to Texas after spending his career at A&M. He's really good. People think he's a head case because of what happened with Rudolph, and I agree it's kind of impossible to shake that look, especially after the whole controversy where he claimed that Rudolph used a racial slur, and that was why he did it, and there was no proof behind it. And if he was lying about it, he pretty much completely sabotaged somebody else's character just to try to make himself look a little bit better. So I don't really know how that played out. I'm not going to pretend I know what was said, what wasn't said. It wasn't really a good look either way. But in terms of defensive linemen or defensive ends, he's easily a top 5 defensive end in the entire league. I think that's not even a discussion.
No, I agree. I'd at the end of the day, I'd probably rather have him than Clowney. I gotta be honest with you.
I agree with that. Clowney's had some injury issues. You have to wonder if he's overpaid. But if you know Garrett, if he's on your team and he's playing 16 games, he's going to get you minimum 13 sacks.
Yeah.
I mean, he's actually that good.
Watch him play. How much money do you think Clowney made from that one hit? That one where he blew up the he
was the number 1 overall pick despite having injury issues and barely playing his senior year. So I'd have to say somewhere in the $50+ million range.
Yeah.
But either way, his combine was insane. So he would have gone high first round anyway.
Right.
But he was basically a lock to be the number 1 overall pick as a junior, as a sophomore, something like that.
Right.
So that was unheard of, and that hit definitely catapulted him to, epic level proportions. Even though Clowney's been really good in the NFL, I think he's underachieved, if I'm just going to be completely honest with what he's done.
Yeah, for a 1-1, absolutely.
I think Ndamukong Suh is also underachieved in the NFL, even though he's been around for a long time and he's been solid, just because at Nebraska, he was projected to be a top 5 defensive tackle of all time, according to projections.
It was incredible. It was incredible to watch him play. That was when Nebraska was still in the Big 12, and he had a game that he just absolutely dominated.
It was Texas in the Big 12 title game.
Well, I was going to say against Mizzou.
It was every game. He was a Heisman finalist as defensive tackle.
Yeah, he was unbelievable, and yes, he's certainly has been a disappointment only because the bar was set so high for him in the NFL, and he's always been a bit of a head case. So
yeah, we kind of went on a bit of a segue with defensive linemen, but it is worth mentioning just because of the fact that, talking about Cleveland, that also might play a factor because the defense, assuming Garrett is back for the entire time, should keep them a little bit more competitive in terms of game flow. So the Browns shouldn't be in as serious danger to get blown out and be forced to throw the ball late in games. I think that with Garrett back, with that defense, I don't really think that defense is that bad. And I think that offense on paper should be pretty good with an improved offensive line. So based on game flow, I think they'll be competitive, which should bode well for Chubb and his touches moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. And, one final note on that situation. With no crowds in the stands, which is likely going to be the situation in the NFL, probably have a lot better shot of knowing if Mason Rudolph uses racial slurs. Just saying.
That is fair. I mean, nobody really knows because I just know
No.
that they mic'd up a couple of I forgot how they do it. I don't want to say body cams, but you know what I mean with some players. And then
Right.
apparently the audio for that play was lost, so that is a little bit sketchy. I'm not sure how
Mm.
exactly that worked out for the timing, but I just remember that was said by Garrett. Uh, if you have no proof on it, I'm not going to immediately assume that Rudolph's guilty. Definitely not a great look for both parties in that situation. But I kind of feel bad for Rudolph in a way. Of course, if he said the slur, he deserves to be punished and everything like that. But if he didn't say it and there's no real proof that he did, and yet everyone now thinks he's a racist, that's not exactly a good spot to be in for a quarterback who got smashed in the head with his own helmet after losing a game and then now being told that he's a racist. I don't really think
Right.
that's good. That kind of compounds the issue without any evidence whatsoever. So
Yep.
that is something to keep in mind.
Agreed. All right. So back to the running backs here. Let's take a look at the post Tom Brady New England Patriots. And in particular, let's take a look at Sony Michel, who finally has a chance to shine on his own in this offense. Scott, I've got Sony Michel at over 900.5 rushing yards. He had over 900 yards the last two seasons with Tom Brady trying to throw the ball down the field. I think this offense is finally going to be what Belichick wants. I think it's going to be ground and pound, using Sony Michel the way Belichick has always wanted to use him. This is probably my favorite bet on the board in the AFC. I like Sony Michel over 900.5 yards.
So if you actually shop around, you can actually find 924.5 if you do want the under. I'm actually going to disagree with you here. I actually like the under in this spot. I can't say that I'm going to put any money on this because until I actually know the starting quarterback is for New England, I wouldn't place any amount of money on any bet that they're going to have just because I don't know anything about their offense. I mean, you're relying on Jared Stidham right now to be the starting quarterback. And from what I saw in the very small sample size against the Jets in garbage time, he looked terrible. So I wouldn't really want it. I do agree that based on the offense and with the young quarterback, they should have looked to run the ball more. If I'm going to be honest, though, I really don't think Sony Michel is that good, if I'm just being completely honest. I know that he was good in his rookie season, especially with that passing attack with Brady and how it definitely took some pressure off. The issue I have is that now that this team is going to be relying on pretty much a rookie quarterback. I know he played last year in like one game in garbage time, but without any real regular season action, Stidham's pretty much a rookie. And I think that with the lack of experience, you don't expect teams to just dial up the pressure and to just stack the box and just dare Stidham to beat them through the air. I just see that happening. And I really think that New England has a below-average receiving core, which should help teams press on the outside, put people in the box. And Michel last year really didn't look that good. I know he ended up breaking 900 yards, but there were a lot of games where he just did absolutely nothing. And I think that that's a bit of a concern. Plus, he's had a couple of injuries that he's had to deal with over the course of his young NFL career as well. For that reason, I would lean to the under, but I'm not going to play it because I don't know anything about this offense. I'm not going to compare it to David Montgomery from the Bears, but it's kind of similar in the sense that I don't know who the quarterback is. So because of that, I have no interest in playing any props involving the team because I feel like I'd get a better understanding of what to expect depending on who's going to be under center. But I don't really like the offense at all. So for that reason, I would lean to the under, but I'm not going to play it. I'm not going to play this one at any point.
All right, fair enough. That's a long time to explain why you're wrong, but that's okay.
We'll see. We'll see about that. I mean, I guess.
Yeah, I know. There are a lot of variables there, and this is a bet for me, not necessarily in the skill level of Sony Michel, but just for opportunities. I think he's going to get probably close to 225, 250 carries, and I think most starting running backs in the NFL, given that many chances, are going to be able to get over that 900-yard mark. No, I'm not saying that he by any chance is an elite back, but I do think he can average 3.7, 3.8 yards per carry and get us to that number. So we'll see what happens. There are a lot of moving parts still probably to go with this New England offense. We will have to see what happens. Now that the red rifle is off the board, who are they looking at for quarterback up there in New England? Is it really going to be Jared Stidham?
I don't think they're getting Newton. I think Newton would be a terrible fit with Belichick. And the truth is, I think Belichick wouldn't stand him. I understand that Cam Newton has a lot of physical talent. At least he did before all the injuries started to derail his
Right.
career. The issue that you're going to have is that Tom Brady is one of the most accurate quarterbacks of all time. And that's why people think he's one of the greatest quarterbacks, if not the greatest of all time. And you're going to replace him with, Cam Newton, even though he's a great athlete, he's a pretty inaccurate quarterback. I don't think that's really a shocking statement or a hot take by me. He has had accuracy issues in the past. And I think in a Belichick system where it's all based on timing and it's all based on read progressions, I think Newton would be one of the worst options you could actually have for that system. I thought Dalton was a perfect fit. And now that he ended up going back to Dallas, I really think Stidham's going to be the guy. I personally think Brian Hoyer should potentially be starting. Hoyer was terrible last year with the Colts, but he has experience starting with this system. So I think that he's currently the backup quarterback. I think he should probably be starting. Personally, though, I think Stidham's going to be starting. You have any thoughts?
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I don't think that I just don't think there's that many viable options left for Hoodie. I just don't think that he's got that many choices. And yeah, I think we have the title of today's episode. Tom Brady is more accurate than Cam Newton.
Yes, that is my hot take. That's my that's my first take opinion of the day on that one. No, but just going through it, my bold call, if you really wanted one, I think Cam Newton's going to be a free agent for the year. I don't think he's going to sign anywhere for the entire season.
Wow.
That's my take there. The issue there is the fact that Cam Newton, I know you're going to need confidence and you need some type of ego in order to actually be successful in the league because you need confidence in yourself when nobody else does. I think Cam Newton's basically delusional with how much money he thinks he's worth in the open market right now. Jameis Winston and Dalton were both starting quarterbacks making double-digit millions, and they pretty much each settled for roughly like $3 million or less guaranteed. And right. Cam Newton believes he's worth double-digit $1 million. I don't know what he's talking about. Cam Newton right now, if he actually wanted to play, would get paid maybe $5 million, excluding incentives. That's basically what his contract would be. And Newton believes he's worth $20-something million off of a serious injury that nobody knows anything about and how he's rehabbed. So for that reason, I just don't think it's going to work. I think that the gap between salary demands is too high that he's just going to sit the year out.
Very possible. And there's not that many opportunities right now for teams that need starting quarterbacks,
And injuries will lead to some opportunities, but yes, I do agree with that. So do you do you really see one spot that just goes, I think he can go here? Because I don't.
No, I'm trying to go. I'm going over in my head as we talk about it.
Everything's for a backup spot, unless Jacksonville decides to spend the money. But I think they're tanking, so I don't know what the point is.
Yeah, I just don't see them paying that kind of money to Cam Newton for a team that's most likely going to be, like you said, I don't know about completely tanking, but
bottom. They're going to be bottom 5. That's pretty much a lock. The Jaguars are going to be bottom 5 in the league.
I agree. What else you got for running backs? Anything else that stands out for you?
Yes. I'm actually going to be looking at Joe Mixon. Speaking of potential bottom 5 teams, we're going to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals for a second. Joe Mixon on Fox Bet is under 12.20.5, and I like that at minus 120. Even though there's a little bit of juice on it, last year Mixon, he actually had a pretty solid year, all things considered, with the lack of quality quarterback play and the lack of just pretty much any cohesion on that offense. He ran for 1137 last year. I think that total's just simply too high at 12.20.5. AJ Green missed the entire season. You got a new quarterback, and you also ended up drafting Higgins. You have a pretty decent receiving core. Burrow can throw the ball downfield. I think that he has the ability to stretch defenses out. I think that should eat into Mixon's touches on the ground. Plus, Cincinnati should be trailing a decent amount of games in the fourth quarter, which should lead to more pass attempts game flow-wise. So even though I do like Mixon a lot as a running back, he's still a very solid pass catcher, and I think that 12.20.5 for rushing yards is a bit too high, especially since he ran for 1137 last year with a very underwhelming – Dalton was okay, all things considered, but that offensive line wasn't great, and the offense looked terrible at times. So for that reason, I think that number is a bit too high. I think he should finish somewhere in the same realm in the 1100s. So I think that total is too high. I'll lean to the under.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see Mixon breaking through for his best season ever, and
I think
that's
that could be
basically
next. I think that could be next year. I don't think that's this year.
well, that's basically what it would take at this point. Is he is yet to go for 1,200 yards, and I think they have far more options away from him than they ever
Mhm.
have had in the past. So yeah, I think you've made a solid case for the under there. That is a play that I had as well. I really like Joe Mixon under, and it's not really even a mark on Joe Mixon as is a high quality running back, but it's just there's too many other options, and the game situation most likely will not favor running late in the game in the third and fourth quarter there with Cincinnati's situation. So yeah, I'm a fan of that one.
Well, I know
Um,
that Mixon at the end of the year was getting 30 plus touches a game during the last couple of weeks. So that also definitely helped because he was getting so many touches.
right.
But I mean, Mixon also had Ryan Finley at the starting quarterback spot for roughly 2 games, and he's terrible. So they were pretty much force feeding Mixon the rock 30 times. So now that you actually have the number one overall pick, you might try to ease him in with Burrow, with the new system and everything like that. But he's still a threat to air the ball out. And if you are going to be completing some pass, especially to A.J. Green, who's a very solid deep receiver, couple 50, 60-yard completions there, and you lose 60 yards of potential for rushing yards. So for that reason, I just think there's more value on the under than the over.
Yeah, and it took a lot of carries. He averaged just 4.1 yards per carry last season. It took him 278 carries to get to 1130. So that's taking its toll right there, my friend. That's getting close to that magic number of 300. And yeah, that's not necessarily a good look or bode well for more success this season. All right, I'm going to finish up with one there that I imagine you're going to have an opinion on. I'm going to take a look at Le'Veon Bell. Combined rushing receiving yards over 1375.5. Everybody talks about how he was just kind of a non-factor, had a down year last season, but he still went for 1250 combined. Now they did draft Pirine, but they don't have a ton of other options as far as splitting time with
Yeah,
Le'Veon Bell.
they got 90-year-old Frank Gore now.
Oh, good point. Yeah, I just and that really doesn't change my feeling about this. I think Le'Veon Bell is still going to be the man. Frank Gore could get some touches, but yeah, I still like the over 1375 with Bell. What do you think, bud?
Well, just looking at it solely from a rushing yard perspective, if you wanted to go through last year, Bell had 789 rushing yards in 15 games. If you look at the offensive line, it really wasn't Bell's fault. That offensive line was absolutely terrible. If you were watching any Jets games last year, and I highly doubt you were because I don't know why you actually would do that, besides red zone occasionally showing a touchdown on there here and there, Bell actually looked good last year. Despite the yardage, he actually looked pretty fresh. It was just the fact that he had no lanes to run in for the entire season. It just was the way it was, but he actually was solid. If you look at some videos and some film, he actually looked pretty good. And I agree with the rushing and receiving. If you were going to take it, that would be the way that I would look. But if you wanted to look for rushing yards solely with the number, pulling up the number here, if I can find it, yeah. It's over under 875.5. I'd actually lean to the over there. It really depends on what you think about the new offensive line because the Jets brought in basically 5 new offensive linemen. They're going to revamp the entire thing.
Right.
The receiving core got worse. They brought in Denzel Mims in the second round, which I do like, but he's a rookie. It's probably going to take some time for him to adjust. You lost Robbie Anderson. You replace him with Perryman, who had a phenomenal last couple of weeks last year with the Buccaneers. And before that, he was pretty much a bust on the Browns, so I'm not really trustworthy of Perryman. Bell should catch a lot of passes out of the backfield, which bodes well for what you said with the rushing and receiving. But Bell last year, with a terrible offensive line, still had 789, and he missed a game. So for me, I think he could break 900, potentially 1,000 here if the Jets commit to running the ball. I know Gore might take some touches as just a quick breather guy, and Pirine might catch some passes, anything like that, but Bell should get a large portion of the snaps here. And for that reason, I'd lean to the over. I think he could break 900. So I take
Yeah,
the over there.
yeah. I think that's a solid play as well. All right, you got anything else to bring us on home, or are you have
Uh,
you shot your shots?
yes, I was actually going to ask. I was going to mention one more player, and I kind of wanted your thoughts on that one. And the player that I'm going to be talking about is going to be Josh Jacobs, and his number is currently 1220 and a half. Now, Jacobs last year had 1150, and he only played in 13 games. So he was on pace for a phenomenal season, and he still went under because of the fact that he got injured and missed 3 games, which pretty much costed him Offensive Rookie of the Year. I might shock you a little bit here. I'm going to take the under at 1220 and a half. Am I going to bet it personally? No, but I'm going to mention it. And the reason's simple. I don't think he can stay healthy. He was a rookie, and which means that he didn't have much mileage on him, especially at Alabama, where you basically start 1 year as a running back, and then you move on to the NFL, and you end up getting drafted, and you end up doing whatever. I think Josh Jacobs is really good. He just can't stay healthy. It's just the way it is. I mean, if you miss 3 games in your rookie year, and these are late games, Oakland, despite underachieving, was actually in the playoff. I can't say underachieving, actually, because people expect them to be good and they were competitive. They were still in the wild card hunt week 17. So it wasn't like Jacobs was just missing meaninless games. They
Right.
needed him for those games. And he had a shoulder injury. He had a leg injury. He got banged up. And I don't think he can stay healthy. So for that reason, I would lean to the under. Because I think you're more likely to see Jacobs play another 13-game season than you are to play him for him to play another 16-game season. So for that reason, I think he's going to get injured again. I'm going to take the under.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good call, and he's definitely a high quality running back. He did have, he averaged 4.8 yards per carry. They didn't utilize him much out of the backfield as far as a pass catcher goes, but he got 242 carries in 13 games, and I think that's probably the top end of his workload. I think teams are not going to be surprised by him as they were last season, especially early in the year. And I think a lot of those games where he was able to put up some pretty sterling numbers, I don't think they're probably going to have quite the success that they did. And I think 13 games sounds about right for him. That's a legitimate point.
Well,
Excuse me.
I
Now,
mean,
there's something to be said for a guy that's a 3-year starter, and you find out how tough they are. You find out how durable they are. Sure, on the flip side of the coin, it does take its toll with those 3 years in their body. But if you've got a guy that was just a 1-year starter there at Alabama, especially in an offense where they threw the ball a lot, and then can't stay healthy in his rookie year, I don't think that bodes well for his career. Now, maybe we'll be wrong. Maybe it's just odd stuff that happened, and maybe he'll be fine. But I think if you're going to play the numbers, you're going to play the odds. I think the odds are he is going to be one of these guys that you're going to wonder what if at the end of his career because he was banged up so much.
yeah, I mean, if you wanted to look towards a Josh Jacobs over potentially for a season, I think you'd be better off just taking individual games for the over. Just because, assuming he can stay healthy, I think that Jacobs should start off the year really well.
Yeah.
The only issue that I do have with taking the under here is based on the complete lack of depth from the running back position in Las Vegas with the Raiders. You look at the depth chart, they lost DeAndre Washington, who was their number 2 running back, who I actually thought was pretty good in Jacobs' absence. I mean, they drafted Bowden Jr. as a wide receiver, but he's one of the running backs listed on the depth chart. You got Jalen Richard, you got Rod Smith, and that's it. The running back depth is actually terrible. So realistically, Jacobs should probably get 20-plus carries a game. But I think that's going to cause him to get banged up. And also, for some reason, even though he's a good receiver, Gruden loved to bench him on 3rd down for Richard, which I think
Right.
is just stupid. I don't really get it. I think Jacobs is definitely an above-average pass catcher out of the backfield. I know Richard is kind of like a Darren Sproles undersized pass catcher, but Jacobs is just phenomenal. I don't know why you just wouldn't want him on the field almost every snap. So I think he's going to lose some 3rd down work, and I think the carries are going to pile up early on. For that reason, I think he's going to get injured. So I would take the under.
Yeah, he had just 18.6 carries per game last year, and I think they are going to probably heap a little bit more on him. And that,
Yeah, he got injured last year with roughly 18 carries per game. And now that
Yeah.
all the other backups are gone and they replaced them, and now he should be getting 20 plus. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, he could easily play 11 games. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
And you also have to wonder, it's not even just missing games. Let's just say, for example, Jacobs ends up being able to play, but he has a somewhat serious leg injury. I mean, what? He's going to play and get 60 yards on, 12 carries?
Right.
I don't – I mean, that's going to kill his average. I mean, there's
You
no
know,
way
and
to talk about
and
it.
the other thing is you have to look at the division that he plays in, and he plays against two really good defenses and a decent defense in Kansas City, but you play against two really stout defenses there in the Chargers
And
and the Broncos. Yards don't come easy against those two squads, and the Chiefs did very well in the back half of the season, even better against the pass, but still not bad against the run as they shut down Derrick Henry and then shut down Devin Mostert in the Super Bowl. So there is some real rush defenses there in the AFC West where they're going to be playing 6 of their 16 games. So, yeah, I'll go with you on Jacobs and the under. That's solid.
Yeah. Do you have any more thoughts on some props here or no?
What else did I have? I had
I got one more actually, but I'll let you go.
Okay. I've got David Johnson and down there in Houston under 1259.5 combined. This guy is a guy that just has trouble staying healthy. He had just 735 combined last year in 13 games that he played at least parts of. If you look back over his record, he just had one good season, and that was his All-Pro year there of 2016. He's been an underachiever every other time. They still got Duke Johnson, and I think David Johnson is going to end up being a bust for the Houston Texans. Scott, your thoughts on DJ?
Sorry, can you just repeat the exact number you got there?
Well, 1259.5 combined.
I gotta like the under there as well. The issue that I have with David Johnson, I understand if the Texans only had one big running back and they wanted a pass catcher on third down or some guy who could give him a change of pace. He's basically the exact same player as Duke Johnson, just slightly better.
Right.
So I don't know how you're supposed to split touches between the two of them and without, somewhat of an even 50-50 split. I mean, if you're going to take the over in Johnson, you need him to take roughly, 75% of the snaps? Maybe 80%?
You'd really think so.
Stylistically, he's the same player as Duke Johnson. So I don't know why you wouldn't just plug and play them kind of equally. Am I wrong there, thinking that?
No, very, very, very similar skill set. And David Johnson is only averaged over 18 yards per carry. That was the 18 carries per game. That was his big year in 2016. And other than that, he's only hit over 11 carries per game one time, and that was in 2018 when he went for 16 carries per game, and still just put up 940 on the rushing side and 446 on the passing side. So I just don't see the opportunity there for him. I think they have a lot of good receivers. I think is him working out of the backfield as far as a passing target is going to be impacted, and I just don't see the touches that he gets to get to that total.
I mean, would you be surprised to see a full system of 1A, 1B? I think that Johnson should get most of the snaps because, I mean, they literally traded arguably the best receiver in the entire game in order to get him. As stupid as that sounds still after all this time.
Yes.
So I wouldn't be surprised to see Bill O'Brien force feed him maybe in the beginning to try to make it seem like the trade was better than it actually was. But at the end of the day, Johnson had injury issues also throughout his entire career. And I really just think that I'm not a big Duke Johnson guy. I'm going to say that right now. He's also had injury issues, so I don't think he's the greatest. But at the end of the day, they're basically the same guy. And I know that the Texans have no goal line back or anybody like that anymore because Carlos Hyde is still a free agent. It would make sense to me if you were replacing Duke Johnson with David Johnson and you kept Carlos Hyde. That might make sense to me. But you have two separate running backs who are, 5'7", 5'8", less than 190 pounds? How you're supposed to.
Surprisingly, and this surprised me too, David Johnson, 6'1", 225.
Really? That surprised me. I thought he was a lot taller than that.
I totally agree.
Okay, fair enough. Either or, still similar skill set to Johnson. I mean, maybe Johnson's a little bit better. I'm sorry, they're both last name Johnson. Maybe David is a little bit better inside the tackles than Duke, but realistically, they're both better pass catchers than runners, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that
as well.
You know, what do they say? What do they say in like the NBA? Like he plays big.
Yeah,
David Johnson is the opposite. He plays small.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't play like he's 6'1", 2.25. He's not a power running back like that. Yeah, I agree. I agree. So, all right. So you said you had one more?
Yes. Now I'm actually going to be cheating for this one. I'm going to be looking at Lamar Jackson over under rushing yards because we talked about the quarterbacks.
Yep.
We mentioned it briefly on the quarterback show, but Lamar Jackson still has a huge rushing yard total, and I feel like it was worth mentioning. The number on Fox Bet is 1049.5.
No.
Oh, it's
Hard
true.
bet.
That's the number.
I believe you.
And I'm taking the under.
Yeah,
because
you
we
have
talked
to.
about this. Yes, we talked about this with the quarterbacks. Mentioned it briefly when we mostly talked about passing yards. I have no idea how Lamar Jackson's supposed to go over again. I mean, the issue that you have is twofold. One, Baltimore is going to try to keep him healthy. So you have to assume that maybe they won't get him into as many risky situations with 250-plus pound guys potentially piling up on him because of how valuable he is. Plus, he also missed a game last year because they rested him at the end of the year. So you know Harbaugh's willing to pull the plug if this team wins the division, clinches home field, stuff like that. And third of all, I just simply think defenses are going to be more prepared to deal with Lamar Jackson's rushing ability. You saw in the past with some quarterbacks, for example, Kaepernick and RG3, and you've seen some other quarterbacks in the past who light the league on fire one year when it comes to running the ball from the quarterback position, and then the following year, their rushing numbers fall off a cliff.
Oh, yeah.
Because coaching staffs have a full offseason to prepare a system that forces those mobile quarterbacks to do something that they're not willing or comfortable to do, and that mostly involves throwing in the pocket. So I wouldn't be surprised to see defenses pretty much have a spy on Lamar Jackson almost every single snap, and I think that's going to kill his rushing yards. Do I think he's going to be terrible rushing the ball? No, but I think Jackson should finish somewhere around, 600-700?
That would be my guess. I think he'll probably still lead the league as far as quarterback rushing goes.
So I still love the under there. I think that number is way too high, and that might be one of my favorite plays on the board if you were looking at it. 1049 is way too high.
Yeah, I agree with that. The landscape is littered with running quarterbacks who could not stay healthy. Donovan McNabb, Randall Cunningham, Michael Vick, the one, of course, you mentioned RG3. It's just not a situation that lends itself. And you see a lot of the guys that ran early don't run as much, like a Russell Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
Figured out the way to stay healthy was to become more of a not necessarily a traditional drop back quarterback, but at least moving the pocket and trying to keep him healthy, trying to minimize the shots that he takes during the game. That is the way. You cannot. It's just physics, my friend. You cannot take a quarterback like that and subject him to multiple shots every game and have him stay healthy. There's just no path to victory there for Lamar Jackson to have the kind of season that he had last year going forward. I agree.
Yeah, for that reason, I think last year, I don't want to say it was an anomaly because I do think Lamar Jackson is very solid, but I think that was probably the peak of his just statistical numbers there. I mean, those numbers were insane. If you want to talk about touchdown passes with rushing yards and everything like that,
right,
that is an unheard of season for a quarterback that I don't think we're going to be seeing anytime soon.
No, so, what did he do? 1,200? Did he end up with? Did he get to 1,200?
Let me look at that really quickly.
Rushing yards? No, I've got it too. I thought you might.
Yeah, he got to 1,206. Now his passing yards weren't that high. He had a lot of passing touchdowns, which was very interesting. Just based on passing yards in comparison to
he threw for 3,000 yards barely and 36 touchdown passes.
Correct, which is also ridiculous. I think last year was just I don't want to say it was a fluke, but it was just nuts. And I think the odds of him duplicating that season are slim to say the least. Yeah. I think he should throw for around, I'd say 4,000 yards, and I think he should rush for around 700. So for that reason, I'll lean to the under.
Yeah, I'll say it. I think it was a complete fluke and an outlier, and most likely Won't be repeated in our lifetime. How about that?
I
I'll
think
go out and
that's
say that.
I think that's definitely likely, just based on how absurd those numbers actually were. And Jackson, I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback by any means or anything like that. I just think defenses will force him to throw the ball more, and they're not going to let him get in space. You can say that Lamar Jackson, whether or not people have criticized him and saying he should have been a wide receiver, he's not fit to be a quarterback. That's stupid. He won the MVP. He's clearly fit to be a quarterback. But you have to just say to yourself right now, I think we can agree that Lamar Jackson is more dangerous past the line of scrimmage in space than he is in the pocket.
Absolutely.
So for that
Absolutely.
reason, defenses should force him to stay in the pocket, and I think that will cause his rushing numbers to plummet. So I love the under there.
All right. Good enough. All right, my friend. We've got another one in the can here today. I like today's show. There was a lot of attractive bets out there. You and I didn't agree on everything, which always makes for fun. Always makes for fun videos, and I think people like to see, both sides of a player, of both sides of a bet. So that was kind of fun as well.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like the main disagreement we had was on Sony Michelle, but overall, no, it's always fun to talk about just sports, throwing some conversation, some jokes in there, always helps. And yeah, looking forward to it. I mean, I know we're going to be taking a little bit of a break before we resume with the wide receivers because we have a UFC show coming up tomorrow for UFC 249 with Winning Willie. So stay tuned for that. We're going to be going through the card. I already started breaking it down, so I'm looking forward to mentioning some of my bets there. And then we got some Money in the Bank stuff to talk about with the WWE, as we're going to be having Dave on, I believe.
Yep, yep. We're gonna have the Dominator on. A big fan of the WWE, and the difference between WWE this year and years past. A lot easier to bet on it. Actually, placing bets on the WWE. So that's why we're going to be talking about it. Because if you can, our slogan: if you can bet on it, you can bet. We'll be talking about it over winners and liners. So
Yeah.
it's going to be a hoot. And I know there's going to be a lot of UFC stuff coming up. What do you got? You said you had 3 fights in 8 days. Is that right, Scott?
Yes, there are 3 cards in 8 days. I mean, the main one's UFC 249, which is going to be coming up this Saturday in Florida. So I'm looking forward to that one. Fight card's ridiculous. They basically took a bunch of canceled cards and just merged it and created some super duper card. It looks really good, and I look forward to watching it. Now, yeah, in terms of the actual picks, some of the matches are tough to pick just because of how either even or how unpredictable the fight can actually be. But we'll go through it in depth tomorrow, and I look forward to, providing all of you with that content. So stay tuned for that. And we look
Excellent.
forward to providing you any type of combat in betting, whether it's going to be MMA, whether it's going to be, WWE, pretty much anything that you can bet on, as you just said, we are going to cover it. So stay tuned. We look forward to sharing more content like that with you in the future.
And I'll be here to introduce you guys and say, wow, I did not know that. Wow, that is surprising to me. Nope, I had no idea. I'll be
Is
saying
it
that a lot
good
tomorrow.
when you punch the other guy in the face? And I'm just going to be, yes, that is definitely encouraged. That is what you look for in a UFC fighter. But I'm sure after our riveting esports conversation for over an hour and change with Willie last week and how little you knew about that, I think you'll find a way.
Oh, yeah.
Great ones always do. I think you'll find a way.
The great ones find a way.
Mm-hmm.
I can't give an outline better than that. But so yeah, you guys make sure you tune in tomorrow for the UFC. On Thursday we'll be doing WWE. Then Friday and Saturday we'll be back to take a look at the receivers in their respective conferences. And after that, we'll see where it goes. We're just kind of steering the car down as it careens down the road here and sees. It's a very fluid situation. We'll see what happens. Maybe we'll talk a little Korean baseball once we have some stats under our belt and can talk about that if you can bet on it. Yeah, we need to talk about it because there's not that many options these days.
Yeah, well, I'm assuming after how well received the opening day was for ESPN, I'm assuming that I don't want to say that they got a spike in viewership at 2 a.m, but it was probably pretty high if I had to guess. So I would not be surprised to see ESPN, especially considering the fact that they have pretty much no other programming to show besides 7 straight hours of SportsCenter with SVP. I think they pretty much have to keep showing Korean baseball.
Oh, yeah.
So for that reason, I feel like we probably will have to talk about it at some point.
Scott, you're looking at a guy here that taped back to back to back the slippery stairs competition, the lawnmower racing competition, and death diving. So I am looking forward to Korean baseball. I'm probably just going to tape it, get up and watch it, see how my bets did, and I can watch it on my schedule. That's what I'm not going to stay up till 5 a.m. watching Korean baseball, but I will watch it as soon as we're done taping our daily show. And yeah, you know what? It's live baseball, and you pegged it really well before we went on the air. You said, you know what? If you don't like betting on baseball, not going to be that big of a deal. You're probably not going to be betting on it. But if you do like betting on baseball, it's a decent product. It's certainly recognizable. They're playing at a pretty high level. And most importantly, again, I can't stress this part enough, you can make a wager on it. So
yeah, I mean, you could find pretty much, I believe there were 6 games going simultaneously. They kind of stick to a soccer-ish approach in the sense they try to get all of the games to start at the same time. So that's
right.
kind of what the Korean baseball organization tries to do, which is similar to how the Premier League and stuff in soccer tend to do their weekends. You have occasional games on Sunday, but for the most part, they all start at roughly the same time. So you can find ways to stream every game if you really wanted to. You might be more interested in the ESPN game because the commentary will actually be in English. So that definitely helps. I mean, then again, if you've been betting on Russian ping pong and anything like that over the last couple of months anyway, I don't think the commentators are going to mean much. If you've been betting on Mexican soccer in the past, I think you're pretty much used to muting the subtitles because you're not going to understand what they're saying anyway. So, and I'm muting the subtitles, you know what I mean? Muting the commentators. So for that reason, it might not make much of an impact for some. Some people like the atmosphere when it comes to baseball and actually listening to the dialogue in the imaginary booth through the Zoom calls nowadays. I thought Carl Ravitch and Singleton? Yeah, I thought they actually did a pretty good job yesterday. So I would not be surprised to see more people betting on the ESPN game as opposed to the other 5. And I think you should see that moving forward.
Completely agree. And if you want to get a good preview of what sports is likely to look like in America, it's good. At least tune it in and check it out because they have nobody in the stands, and all the base coaches are wearing masks.
I saw one photographer in the stands who was taking pictures for some newspaper or something. But yeah, the third base coach had a mask on and was giving thumbs up arm bumps for all home runs that were hit, which was definitely unique. That's the thing about baseball. It might matter from the actual fan perspective if you are so used to whether it's Yankee Stadium or Fenway Park or, it's a very big rivalry game. Since nobody in America basically knows anything about any of the teams and they're just betting solely because it's on, I don't think the fans are really going to make much of a difference for us because we don't know what it was like when they had fans in the first place to compare it to. Some people do. You mentioned somebody who used to be on your show who talked about Korean baseball, so some people are familiar with it and they have been. For the most part, people aren't going to know the difference because they don't know what it was like beforehand. So for that reason, I don't think no fans are going to be that big of a deal when it comes to Korean baseball.
No, I don't know what the impact is going to have, but I'm just saying as far as a preview of what it's going to look like in American sports when you scan the stands and there's nobody sitting there.
Yeah,
it is kind of an interesting thing.
Really wasn't that bad for me. I understand that if you want to go to games, it's a big deal because you can't go to games. But are you really only watching a game because of the crowd atmosphere? Like, give me a break. I mean, you're going to watch it anyway. It's not.
You're right.
You can try to claim it's not as good as it used to be, or you miss a certain aspect of it. Let's be real. You're still going to watch the NFL on Sundays. It really doesn't matter who's in the crowd or who's not.
Yep.
Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, and I think I don't know who commissioned the survey, but I saw a survey that I believe it said 88% of the people will still watch as many games as possible, even without anyone in the stands.
I think the 12% are people who think it looks better on paper than it actually does practically, and they're going to go on. They're going to wake up on Sunday and realize, what else am I supposed to do? And they're going to put on.
Right.
So even though it's 88-12 according to that survey you just mentioned, I think it's really like 93-7.
I totally agree. You're going to get up on Sunday? There's going to be an NFL game, and you're not going to watch it because there's no one in the stands. I don't believe.
Like, what are you
that.
going to do? You're going to turn on and say there's no fans. I'm going to watch NASCAR instead. Like, I don't know how you're just going to ignore football on Sundays.
And you know what you got at NASCAR? No fans.
Correct. So it's a lose-lose entirely.
I agree.
If your sole argument on the NFL or any sport is there's no fans there, then you basically admit you're not watching sports at all, any type of sport.
You're not a sports fan.
Yeah, so. That's basically what just happened.
And you're certainly not a sports bettor.
Yeah.
So. All right, bud. Well, I had a blast. We'll be back tomorrow and do the UFC show with Winning Willie. Always good to hear him check in. He's definitely taken the ball and run with it as far as the kind of the under the radar sports, esports, and UFC. So that'll be fun to talk about. I know you're a big UFC fan as well. And then we'll be back Thursday to talk about WWE with the Dominator. Until then, I am Scott Steen. He is Scott Reichel. We are the face of winnersandwhiners.com. Don't forget to check out winnersandwhiners.com. All of our great content. And over there at our sister site as well at statsalt.com. And don't forget to join us tomorrow on Today in Sports Betting. So you thought I forgot, didn't you?
I like what you did there, though, because you said tomorrow and it didn't throw off your pronunciation of the title. Well done.
No. Tomorrow in Sports Betting. All right, very good. All right, guys, you take care. Everybody, stay well, stay healthy, stay home. We're going to get through it. We're going to have sports back before you know it. And case in point, Korean baseball. So we'll see you at the Duhan Bears game tonight, everybody. Until then, take care. I'm Scott Steen, and we will see you tomorrow.